In an estate where loyalty is tested and betrayal lurks in every shadow, an innocent maid finds herself framed by a jealous brother seeking to protect his own interests, until one brave move turns the tide in her favor. The billionaire's brother tried to frame the Black Maid, but her clever move revealed his lies. Follows the riveting journey of Lila, whose unwavering strength and intelligence expose the dark secrets that threaten to tear the Sterling family apart. As Victor Sterling attempts to shift blame onto Lila for the disappearance of a priceless heirloom, he underestimates her resolve and resourcefulness. This gripping tale unfolds the complex dynamics of power, trust, and justice, illustrating that even in a world filled with deception, one courageous voice can ignite a fight for truth and redemption. Lila had been part of the Sterling household for nearly 7 years, a trusted presence in the sprawling estate of Marcus Sterling, one of the wealthiest men in the country. Her days began before dawn, moving silently through the grand halls, ensuring every corner gleamed and every detail was perfect. She took pride in her work, knowing that the Sterling family depended on her in more ways than one. To Marcus, she was more than a maid, she was family. But all of that changed in an instant. It was during the Sterling family's annual gathering, a lavish affair that drew relatives and close friends from near and far. The estate buzzed with music, laughter, and the clinking of fine china. Lila had been quietly attending to her duties, making sure drinks were refreshed and the rooms remained pristine, when she was suddenly pulled into the eye of a storm she never saw coming. Victor Sterling, Marcus's younger brother, was a man known for his charm and quick wit, yet beneath that veneer lay an undercurrent of ambition and resentment. That evening, Victor's gaze fixed on Lila with an intensity that unsettled her. Moments later, he strode through the ballroom, gathering the attention of the gathered guests with a sharpness that cut through the festive air. "I want everyone to hear this," Victor announced, his voice laced with accusation. "Lila, our longtime housemaid, has been caught near the study where the Sterling family's priceless heirloom was kept, just before it disappeared." A hush fell over the room. Lila's heart pounded. She had never been near the study that evening, let alone the safe where the heirloom was stored. "That's not true," she managed, her voice steady despite the shock. "I haven't taken anything. I swear, I'm innocent." Victor's eyes narrowed. "I saw you myself," he said, his tone leaving no room for doubt. "You were near the safe. If not you, then who else could it be?" The guests exchanged uncertain glances. The Sterling family heirloom was no ordinary possession. It was a symbol of their legacy, a diamond-encrusted necklace passed down through generations. Its disappearance was not just a loss of value, but a blow to the family's honor. Marcus, standing nearby, looked between his brother and Lila, a frown creasing his brow. "Victor, are you sure about this?" he asked quietly. Victor nodded emphatically. "I'm positive. Lila was the last person seen near the study before the heirloom vanished. It's as clear as day." Lila's protests grew more desperate. "I was nowhere near the study, Victor. Please, you have to believe me." Her voice cracked with emotion, but the weight of Victor's accusation seemed to overshadow her pleas. The room grew tense as whispers spread among the guests. Some nodded in agreement with Victor's certainty. Others cast doubtful looks her way. Lila's years of loyal service were suddenly overshadowed by suspicion and doubt. Victor's public confrontation left no doubt about his stance. He wasn't merely accusing Lila in private. He was making sure the entire Sterling family and their guests knew what he believed. The humiliation was unbearable. A close friend of the family, Mrs. Caldwell, approached Lila gently. "Perhaps it's best if you step aside for now, dear," she said kindly but firmly. "We need to get to the bottom of this." Lila nodded, swallowing her pride as she stepped away, her mind racing. How could Victor do this? Why would he accuse her of something so terrible? She had always been more than just an employee. She had shared birthdays with the Sterling children, celebrated holidays, and had been entrusted with their secrets. As she retreated to the quiet of the servants' quarters, Lila's thoughts turned to Marcus. Would he believe Victor's claims? Would he stand by her side? Or would she be cast aside like a criminal? The uncertainty gnawed at her, but she refused to give in to despair. In the privacy of her room, Lila touched the locket Marcus had given her years ago, a small token of gratitude for her unwavering dedication. It was a reminder of the bond she thought was unbreakable. She whispered to herself, "I am innocent. I will prove it." Meanwhile, in the grand study where the heirloom had been kept, the air seemed heavier than usual. Victor's confident accusation had shifted the family's atmosphere from celebration to suspicion. Marcus paced the room, his mind clouded with doubt and concern. He had always trusted Lila, but Victor's certainty planted a seed of uncertainty. Victor, sensing his advantage, leaned back in an ornate chair with a smirk. "We can't ignore what's right in front of us, Marcus." Lila was seen near the safe. "That's all the proof we need." Marcus flicked his gaze toward the empty display case where the heirloom once rested. "I want to believe you, Victor, but I also want to believe in Lila's loyalty. We need to be sure before we act." Victor scoffed. "Sure? The truth is clear. She's the only one who could have done this." Outside the study, guests whispered behind closed doors, the scandal casting a shadow over the evening. The once joyous gathering had turned into a courtroom of whispers and suspicion. Back in the servants' wing, Lila's fellow staff watched her with a mixture of sympathy and wariness. Some believed in her innocence. Others feared the consequences of standing by her. Lila felt the weight of isolation pressing down, but her resolve remained unshaken. As the night deepened, Lila sat alone, replaying the day's events in her mind. She remembered Victor's sharp instructions earlier that afternoon, an unusual insistence that she clean certain areas, including the study. At the time, it had seemed like a simple task, but now it felt like something more sinister, a setup crafted to trap her. Yet, she had no proof, only her word against Victor's. And in a world where power and influence often outweighed truth, that was a precarious position to hold. The next morning, the Sterling estate was quieter than usual. Marcus had called for an early meeting, intending to address the accusations and decide on the next steps. The family gathered in the grand hall, their faces marked by concern and uncertainty. Victor stood confidently, ready to press his case. Lila entered quietly, her head held high despite the storm raging around her. She met Marcus's eyes, searching for a sign of trust. "Lila," Marcus began carefully, "we need to understand what happened. I want to hear your side." Lila took a deep breath. "I was asked to clean the study earlier, but I left before anything happened. I did not take the heirloom. I would never betray your trust." The room fell silent, the weight of her words hanging in the air. Victor's expression darkened, but Marcus's gaze was steady, torn between his brother's accusation and Lila's heartfelt defense. As the family waited for answers, the fragile balance of trust within the Sterling household began to tremble, setting the stage for a deeper unraveling of secrets and loyalties yet to come. The morning sun filtered through the tall windows of the Sterling estate, casting long shadows across the marble floors and gilded furnishings. The air was thick with tension, the events of the previous night still echoing in every corner. Marcus Sterling sat alone in the study, the very room now overshadowed by suspicion and betrayal. His mind churned, trying to piece together the fragments of a puzzle that refused to fit neatly. He thought back to the day before, to the moments that had seemed ordinary but now felt laden with hidden meaning. Victor's accusations had rocked the household, leaving Lila, the woman who had been a steadfast presence in their lives, under a cloud of doubt. Marcus struggled to reconcile the image of the loyal maid with the possibility of deceit. A knock interrupted his thoughts. It was James, the head butler, a man whose calm demeanor had long been a pillar of stability for the family. "Sir, if I may," James began carefully, "there are some details you might want to consider regarding yesterday's events." Marcus gestured for him to continue. "Go on." James cleared his throat. Earlier yesterday, Victor requested that Lila clean the study, specifically the area around the safe. It was unusual for him to be so insistent about that particular room. Marcus frowned. Unusual how? Normally, The cleaning schedule is routine and managed without special requests. But Victor called Lila twice, emphasizing the need to tidy that room thoroughly. It struck me as odd, especially given the events that followed. Marcus leaned back, absorbing the information. He had trusted Victor's judgment, but now wondered if there was more beneath the surface. Did Lila mention anything about this to you? James nodded. She found it strange, but didn't question it openly. She went about her work as always. The memory of that afternoon came into focus. Lila, gloves on, duster in hand, moving with practiced efficiency, unaware that her presence in the study had been noted and would later be twisted into evidence against her. Marcus rose and paced the room, the weight of responsibility pressing down on him. He knew he needed clarity, not just for the sake of the heirloom, but to protect the integrity of his household. He decided to speak directly with Lila, to hear her account without the cloud of accusations. He found her in the servants' quarters, sitting quietly by the window, her hands folded tightly in her lap. Her eyes lifted as he approached, a mixture of hope and apprehension in their depths. Lila, Marcus began gently. I want to understand exactly what happened yesterday. Tell me everything, from the moment Victor asked you to clean the study. Lila took a deep breath. Victor was insistent. He said the study needed special attention. I thought perhaps there had been some dust or a spill. I didn't think much of it. I went there around mid-afternoon, cleaned the shelves, wiped down the desk, and made sure the floor was spotless. I was careful to avoid the safe itself. I know how important it is. After I finished, I left the room. That was the last time I was near the study. Marcus nodded slowly. Did Victor say why he wanted that room cleaned so urgently? She hesitated. No, he just said it needed to be done before the family gathering. It felt like an ordinary task, but now I wonder if there was another reason. Marcus's mind raced. Could Victor have been setting her up? The thought was unsettling, but increasingly plausible. Later that day, Marcus summoned the household security consultant, a discreet professional who had installed the estate's sophisticated surveillance systems. The consultant arrived promptly, a slim man named Daniel, whose sharp eyes missed nothing. Marcus explained the situation briefly. I need a thorough review of the security footage and access logs for the study from yesterday. Pay close attention to any irregularities. Daniel nodded. I'll get started immediately. As Daniel delved into the data, Marcus returned to his office, waiting anxiously. The study was equipped with multiple cameras, designed to capture every angle, but Victor's confident claims had cast a shadow over the reliability of the footage. Within the hour, Daniel returned with preliminary findings. Sir, there are some discrepancies you should be aware of. The footage from the main camera near the safe has a gap of about 15 minutes in the early afternoon. It appears to have been interrupted intentionally. Marcus's brow furrowed. Interrupted? How? Daniel pointed to the screen showing a timeline. There's a manual override on the system. Someone with access disabled the feed briefly. Marcus's heart sank. Do we know who? That's harder to say. The access logs show that only a handful of people have the codes to override the system, and Victor is among them. A cold realization settled over Marcus. Victor's access and his sudden insistence on Lila cleaning the study seemed more than a coincidence. Marcus decided to confront Victor directly, but knew he needed more evidence before doing so. Meanwhile, he continued to observe Victor's behavior closely, noting subtle shifts in his demeanor. Furtive glances, clipped answers, a defensiveness that bordered on hostility. Back in the servants' quarters, Lila grappled with the growing storm. Her innocence was clear to her, but the mounting suspicion weighed heavy. She confided in Maria, a fellow maid and longtime confidant. Why would Victor do this? Lila whispered, her voice trembling. He knows me. He knows I would never steal from this family. Maria shook her head, eyes shining with tears. I don't understand it either, but you have to stay strong. Marcus believes in you. That belief was a lifeline for Lila, a beacon in the dark uncertainty that surrounded her. Meanwhile, Marcus arranged a discreet meeting with the estate's gardener, an observant man who often worked near the study's perimeter. During their conversation, the gardener revealed that he had seen Victor lingering near the study earlier in the day, around the same time the heirloom disappeared. Marcus's suspicions deepened. The pieces were beginning to fit into a pattern that pointed not to Lila's guilt, but to a carefully orchestrated setup. Despite the growing evidence, Marcus remained cautious. He understood the gravity of accusing his own brother and the impact it would have on the family. Yet, his sense of justice and loyalty to the truth compelled him to pursue the matter relentlessly. As evening fell over the Sterling estate, the atmosphere remained fraught with unease. The family gathered once more, the previous night's festivities replaced by hushed conversations and guarded glances. Lila, though still under suspicion, held her head high, bolstered by Marcus's quiet support and the emerging signs that the truth was within reach. Victor, meanwhile, wore a mask of confidence, unaware that the walls he had built around his deception were beginning to crumble. In the quiet moments before the night's end, Marcus stood by the study's window, gazing out at the sprawling grounds. The weight of his family's legacy rested on his shoulders, but so did the responsibility to protect those who had earned his trust. He vowed to uncover the truth, no matter where it led, knowing that justice and loyalty were the only paths forward in the tangled web woven within the Sterling estate. The grand dining room of the Sterling estate was bathed in soft candlelight, its long mahogany table set for an evening meal that now felt heavy with unspoken tension. The family had gathered once again, the air thick with the aftermath of accusations and the fragile threads of trust beginning to fray. Marcus Sterling sat at the head of the table, his gaze steady but troubled, while Victor occupied his usual seat, exuding an air of quiet confidence that belied the storm brewing beneath the surface. Lila entered the room with measured steps, her posture composed despite the eyes that flickered toward her with a mixture of suspicion and pity. She took her place among the servants' designated seating, her heart pounding beneath the calm exterior. This dinner was more than a meal. It was a battleground where truths would be challenged and loyalties tested. Marcus cleared his throat, drawing the attention of those present. Before we begin, I want to address the situation regarding the missing heirloom. This family has always valued honesty and integrity, and I believe it is only fair that we hear all sides before passing judgment. Victor's lips curled into a faint smile. Of course, he replied smoothly. I stand by what I said. Lila was seen near the safe just before the heirloom vanished. That is fact. Lila met his gaze calmly. Victor, your story doesn't add up. You claim to have seen me near the safe, but you've also insisted I clean the study that day. Why would you send me there if you suspected me? A flicker of surprise crossed Victor's face, quickly masked by indignation. That's irrelevant. The facts remain. You were there, and the heirloom disappeared. Marcus watched the exchange closely. Lila's composed challenge was unexpected, and it planted doubt in the minds of some family members. He decided to press further. Victor, can you explain timeline? When exactly did you see Lila near the safe? Victor hesitated for a moment before responding. Early afternoon, around 2 o'clock. I was passing by the study and noticed her there. Lila shook her head. I was cleaning the room, yes, but I was nowhere near the safe itself. I was in and out quickly, and I left well before any disturbance. A cousin, Eleanor Sterling, interjected softly. Victor, if you saw her, why didn't you say something immediately? Why wait until now, during this gathering? Victor's smile tightened. Because I wanted to be sure. I needed to observe, to confirm my suspicions. Marcus sensed the room shifting. Some family members exchanged uncertain glances, questioning Victor's motives for delaying the accusation. The atmosphere grew charged, the veneer of family harmony cracking. Lila seized the moment. I've always been loyal to this family. If you had concerns, you could have spoken to me privately. Instead, you chose to make a public spectacle. Victor's eyes darkened. I'm protecting the family's legacy. If someone is stealing from us, we need to know. Marcus raised a hand, calling for calm. Victor, your concerns are valid, but accusations without clear evidence are dangerous. We must be careful not to let suspicion destroy what we have. Victor scoffed. Careful? What about careful with the heirloom? What about protecting what's mine? A murmur of agreement rippled through some family members, but others looked uneasy. Marcus's sister, Clarissa, leaned toward him, whispering, "There's something off about Victor's story. His timing, his insistence. It feels like more than just concern." Marcus nodded subtly. "I'm beginning to think the same." The dinner continued, but the tension remained palpable. Lila's quiet dignity contrasted sharply with Victor's aggressive posture, and the family was caught in the middle, uncertain whom to believe. After the meal, Marcus pulled Lila aside into the library, a quiet refuge away from prying eyes. "Your composure tonight was admirable," he said softly. "You challenged Victor's story well." Lila sighed, relief mingling with exhaustion. "Thank you, sir, but I fear this is far from over. Victor is determined to see me fall." Marcus placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder. "We will get to the truth. I promise." Meanwhile, Victor retreated to his study, frustration simmering beneath his calm exterior. He knew Marcus's doubts were growing, and he needed to act carefully to maintain his facade. Later that evening, Marcus reviewed the security footage again, this time focusing on the exact moments Victor claimed to have seen Lila. The grainy images showed Lila entering the study, moving purposefully with cleaning cloth and duster, but there was no sign of her near the safe itself. More tellingly, the footage revealed Victor entering the study shortly after Lila left, lingering near the safe with an intensity that raised questions. Marcus's heart pounded as he realized the possibility that Victor's narrative might be a fabrication. The inconsistencies were piling up, yet the family remained divided. The next day, Marcus convened a meeting with his closest advisors, including James, the head butler, and Daniel, the security consultant. "We need to dig deeper into Victor's activities yesterday," Marcus said firmly. "His story doesn't hold up." James nodded. "I've noticed Victor's movements have been unusual. He's been accessing restricted areas without clear reason." Daniel added, "The security logs also show Victor overriding camera feeds at odd times. It's suspicious." Marcus leaned forward, determination in his eyes. "We must find concrete proof. Until then, we proceed cautiously but with vigilance." As the investigation continued, Lila found herself isolated yet resolute. The staff whispered in the corridors, some offering support, others wary of association. She clung to Marcus's quiet backing, knowing her fate hung in the balance. Victor, sensing the tide turning, began to whisper his own version of events to family members, painting Lila as deceptive and untrustworthy. The Sterling household was fracturing, loyalties tested, and the truth elusive. Amidst the turmoil, Marcus stood at the center, torn between family bonds and the quest for justice. He knew that only by uncovering the truth could the Sterling estate hope to heal. In the shadows of the grand estate, the battle between accusation and innocence raged on, each moment bringing the family closer to a reckoning that would change everything. The Sterling estate, once a place of warmth and celebration, had grown cold with suspicion. The grand hallways, usually bustling with quiet conversation and laughter, now echoed with hushed whispers and cautious glances. The fracture within the family was deepening, and at its center stood Lila, steadfast and dignified despite the growing tide of doubt. Marcus Sterling sat in his study, the late afternoon sun casting long shadows across the room. Before him lay a series of reports and security logs, printed and highlighted, each page revealing a small but telling discrepancy. The digital clock on the desk ticked steadily, a reminder that time was slipping away, and with it, the fragile trust that held the household together. Daniel, the security consultant, leaned over the desk, pointing to a particular section of the logs. "Look here, sir. These access records show that the camera feed near the safe was manually disabled for about 15 minutes yesterday afternoon. That's the same window when the heirloom went missing." Marcus frowned. "And the logs indicate who disabled it?" Daniel nodded. "Yes. Only a few individuals have override codes. Victor Sterling is one of them. But there's more. The footage from other cameras shows Victor entering the study shortly after the feed was cut. His behavior is unusual. Marcus rubbed his temples. Unusual how? The video shows him lingering near the safe, appearing to search or manipulate something. Then, when the feed returns, he exits the room with a subtle but noticeable hesitation. Marcus's jaw tightened. The evidence was mounting against Victor, yet the family remained divided, caught between disbelief and loyalty. Meanwhile, in the servants' quarters, Lila sat quietly with Maria, the only confidant she could fully trust. "They're starting to question Victor's story," Maria whispered, hope flickering in her eyes. "Some of the family members have begun to doubt him." Lila nodded, though exhaustion shadowed her features. "I never wanted any of this. I just want the truth to come out." Across the estate, Victor paced his private study, frustration gnawing at his composure. He had counted on his influence to suppress suspicion, but the cracks in his facade were widening. Each new piece of evidence threatened to unravel the carefully woven narrative he had constructed. Determined to regain control, Victor summoned his closest allies within the family, seeking to sow doubt about the security findings. "These so-called discrepancies could be errors," he argued. "We shouldn't jump to conclusions without definitive proof." But Marcus, growing bolder, was not so easily swayed. He called a family meeting in the drawing room, the atmosphere tense but charged with a newfound resolve. "Victor," Marcus began, his voice steady, "the evidence is clear. The security footage was tampered with, and the logs show your access during the critical period. I need you to explain this." Victor's expression hardened. "I used the override to check the system manually. It was routine maintenance. Nothing more." "That maintenance was not scheduled, nor was it reported," Marcus countered. "And the timing coincides precisely with the disappearance of the heirloom." The room grew silent. Some family members exchanged uneasy glances, their faith in Victor wavering. Lila, seated nearby, met Marcus's gaze, a silent plea for justice shining in her eyes. Victor's defenses began to falter under the weight of scrutiny. "This is a witch hunt," he spat. "Lila has always been a convenient scapegoat." Marcus stood firm. "Convenient or not, the truth cannot be ignored." As the meeting adjourned, the Sterling household was left grappling with the implications of betrayal within their midst. Trust had been broken, and the path to healing seemed uncertain. In the days that followed, Marcus continued his investigation, delving deeper into Victor's actions and motives. He sought out the gardener, who had previously mentioned seeing Victor near the study, hoping to gather more testimony. The gardener recounted the day with clarity. "I saw Mr. Victor pacing near the study's entrance around the time the heirloom disappeared. He seemed agitated, constantly checking his watch." Marcus's suspicions solidified. The pieces of the puzzle were aligning, painting a picture of premeditation rather than chance. Meanwhile, Lila found unexpected support among some family members who began to advocate for her. Clarissa, Marcus's sister, approached her privately. "I believe you, Lila," she said gently. "We'll find the truth." That support bolstered Lila's spirits, but the emotional toll remained heavy. She struggled with feelings of betrayal, not only by the accusations but by the fractures within a family she had served faithfully. Victor, sensing the walls closing in, grew desperate. His once confident demeanor gave way to impulsive actions. He confronted Marcus privately, warning him to reconsider. "You're playing with fire," he hissed. "Accusing family is dangerous." Marcus met his brother's glare without flinching. "I'm not accusing without cause. I'm seeking justice." The tension between them was palpable, a chasm that threatened to consume the family. As the investigation progressed, subtle clues continued to emerge. Misplaced documents, altered access logs, and whispered conversations that hinted at deeper schemes. Marcus remained vigilant, determined to uncover the full extent of the deception. One evening, as the family gathered quietly in the drawing room, Marcus addressed them with quiet authority. "We are close to understanding what truly happened. I ask for your patience and trust as we navigate this difficult time." Lila sat among them, her heart swelling with tentative hope. The tide was turning, and with it, the the possibility of redemption. Yet, beneath the surface, the Sterling estate held its breath, aware that the revelations to come would challenge the very foundations of family and loyalty. The Sterling estate was cloaked in an uneasy silence, punctuated only by the distant rustle of leaves and the occasional creak of the grand old house settling into the night. Marcus sat alone in his study, the weight of the family's turmoil pressing heavily on his shoulders. The evidence against Victor Sterling, his own brother, was growing undeniable, yet confronting him directly felt like stepping into a storm Marcus wasn't sure he could weather. That evening, Marcus requested a private meeting with Victor. The room where they met was dimly lit, the heavy curtains drawn to shield them from prying eyes. Victor lounged in an armchair, a smirk playing at the corners of his mouth, masking a simmering anger beneath. "Marcus," Victor began smoothly, "I hear you've been digging into my affairs. Be careful where you tread." Marcus's eyes were steady. "Victor, this isn't personal. It's about the truth. The security logs, the camera footage, they don't lie. You disabled the feed near the safe, and you were the last person seen there before the heirloom vanished." Victor's smirk faded, replaced by glare. "You think you can accuse me without proof? I've done nothing wrong." "You've done plenty," Marcus replied calmly. "The gardener saw you near the study, agitated and checking your watch. You had access codes to override the cameras at a critical time, and the footage shows you lingering by the safe." Victor's jaw clenched. "I was there on business. Routine checks. You're twisting facts." Marcus leaned forward. "The family deserves the truth. I want to believe you, but your evasion only deepens the suspicion." For a moment, silence hung between them like a thick fog. Then Victor's voice dropped low, almost a hiss. "Be careful, Marcus. Accusing your own brother could destroy this family." Marcus met his brother's gaze without flinching. "Sometimes, to save what's left, you have to face harsh truths." Victor rose abruptly, his chair scraping against the floor. "This isn't over." Without another word, he stormed out, leaving Marcus alone with the growing storm inside his heart. The next day, determined to strengthen the case, Marcus approached Lila with renewed purpose. She was in the garden, tending to the flower beds with the quiet grace that had always defined her. He watched her for a moment before speaking. "Lila," he said softly, "I've spoken with the gardener again. He confirms seeing Victor near the study at the time the heirloom disappeared." Lila looked up, her eyes reflecting a mixture of relief and lingering pain. "Thank you, Marcus. That means more than you know. I also want to hear from you directly. If there's anything else you remember, anything unusual that day, it could help." She paused, then spoke carefully. "Victor was unusually insistent that I clean the study. At the time, I thought it was just a request, but now I wonder if it was part of a plan." Marcus nodded thoughtfully. "It's beginning to look that way." Later, Marcus convened a discreet meeting with his closest advisors, including James and Daniel. "We need to compile everything: the security data, witness accounts, and any inconsistencies in Victor's story." James nodded. "I've noticed Victor accessing restricted areas without explanation. There's also been talk among the staff of his erratic behavior." Daniel added, "The tampering with the cameras is the most damning evidence. Whoever did it knew exactly what they were trying to hide." Marcus's resolve hardened. "We must act carefully but decisively. The family's reputation and Lila's future depend on it." Meanwhile, tension within the household grew. Victor, sensing the net tightening, began to lash out subtly, attempting to undermine Lila's credibility. He whispered doubts to family members, painting her as deceitful and manipulative. But others, including Clarissa and a few cousins, began to question Victor's motives. They approached Marcus privately, urging caution and expressing concern over Victor's behavior. In the servants' quarters, Lila remained composed, though the strain was evident. Maria offered quiet support, reminding her to hold on to hope. One afternoon, Marcus arranged to meet the gardener again, hoping to gather a more detailed account. The gardener, a weathered man named Thomas, spoke candidly. "I saw Victor pacing near the study, looking uneasy. He kept glancing at his watch, like waiting for something. It didn't feel right. Marcus pressed gently. Did you see him take anything or meet with anyone? Thomas shook his head. No, but his actions seemed calculated. Armed with this testimony, Marcus felt the evidence solidify. He prepared to present the findings to the family, knowing it would cause upheaval, but believing justice must prevail. Before the family meeting, Marcus sought out Lila. I'm going to stand with you, he assured her. We will clear your name. She smiled faintly, gratitude shining through her weariness. Thank you, Marcus. I trust you. The evening of the meeting arrived, and the Sterling family gathered in the drawing room, the atmosphere thick with anticipation. Marcus stood before them, calm and resolute. I have reviewed the evidence thoroughly, he began. The security footage was tampered with, and access logs implicate Victor in disabling the cameras. Witnesses, including the gardener, place him near the study at critical times. These facts cannot be ignored. Gasps and murmurs rippled through the room. Victor sat rigid, his face pale but defiant. I am not accusing lightly, Marcus continued. But the truth must be confronted for the sake of this family and those who have been wronged. Victor rose, his voice cold. This is a betrayal. I will not stand for these baseless attacks. Clarissa stepped forward, her voice steady. Victor, the evidence speaks for itself. It is time to be honest. The room held its breath as Victor's mask faltered, cracks appearing in his carefully constructed facade. Marcus looked at Lila, who met his gaze with quiet strength. The balance of belief was shifting, and the path toward truth was clearer than before. Yet, beneath the surface, the Sterling estate remained on edge, aware that the coming days would bring revelations capable of reshaping their lives forever. The Sterling estate was cloaked in an uneasy quiet as Marcus Sterling sat in his private study. The soft glow from the desk lamp illuminating a series of documents and recordings laid out before him. The air was heavy with anticipation, the culmination of days of investigation and mounting suspicion finally reaching a tipping point. Marcus's fingers trembled slightly as he connected the final dots, the weight of what he had uncovered settling upon him. Earlier that day, Marcus had received a confidential tip from a trusted security consultant who had been assisting with the estate surveillance systems. The message was brief but explosive. A recent unauthorized transfer of funds had been traced back to Victor Sterling's personal accounts. The move was subtle, disguised among legitimate transactions, but the consultant's keen eye had caught the pattern. Marcus leaned back, absorbing the gravity of the revelation. Victor's motives were no longer just about the missing heirloom. They extended into financial betrayal, a deeper layer of deceit threatening the family's legacy. Determined to act swiftly, Marcus arranged a discreet meeting with Lila, whose innocence had been steadfast throughout the ordeal. She waited patiently in the drawing room, her posture composed, but her eyes reflecting the exhaustion and hope intertwined within her. Lila, Marcus began gently, we have new evidence that confirms your innocence and exposes Victor's wrongdoing. There is a recorded conversation, secretly obtained, where Victor admits to planning the theft and framing you. Lila's breath caught, a mixture of disbelief and relief flooding through her. That conversation, do you have it? Marcus nodded, retrieving a small device from his pocket. Yes, I want you to hear it firsthand. As the recording played softly through the room's speakers, Victor's voice filled the air, cold, calculating, and unmistakably his. He spoke of the heirloom, the plan to steal it, and the deliberate framing of Lila to divert suspicion. The words were damning, a confession that shattered the carefully constructed facade. Lila's eyes welled with tears, but a fierce determination burned within them. Thank you, Marcus. This means everything. With the recording as irrefutable proof, Marcus coordinated with law enforcement to search Victor's belongings. The operation was discreet but thorough, executed with the precision befitting the Sterling name. Later that afternoon, the family gathered once more, tension thick in the air as Marcus presented the revelations. The heirloom, long missing, was discovered hidden among Victor's personal effects, tucked away in a small, ornate box beneath his bed. Gasps and murmurs rippled through the room as the truth finally laid bare. Victor, confronted with the evidence, was silent for a moment before his expression twisted into one of bitter resignation. The mask of innocence shattered, replaced by the stark reality of his culpability. Marcus addressed the family, his voice steady but heavy. Victor's actions have betrayed not only this family, but the trust placed in him. We have taken the necessary steps to involve the authorities. The arrival of law enforcement officers shortly thereafter marked the beginning of Victor's downfall. He was formally arrested for theft and attempted framing, the weight of his crimes now a matter of public record. As Victor was led away, Lila stood quietly, her heart a complex blend of vindication and sorrow. The ordeal had taken its toll, but justice had prevailed. Marcus approached her afterward, his expression one of sincere remorse and gratitude. "Lila, I owe you an apology. I should have trusted you from the start. Your honesty and courage have been unwavering." Lila met his gaze, a soft smile touching her lips. "Thank you, Marcus. It means a great deal." The Sterling household began the slow process of healing, the fractures caused by Victor's betrayal gradually mending under the weight of truth and reconciliation. Marcus ensured that Lila's role within the family was restored and elevated, recognizing her strength and integrity. She was no longer just a maid, but a respected and valued member of the Sterling estate. In the days that followed, Lila found solace in the renewed trust and the knowledge that her name was cleared. The support from Marcus and other family members became a source of strength, helping her to rebuild what had been shaken. Meanwhile, Marcus reflected on the lessons learned, the fragility of trust, the depths of deception, and the resilience required to confront both. As the sun rose over the Sterling estate, casting warm light across the manicured gardens, a sense of peace began to settle. The heirloom was returned to its rightful place, a symbol not only of family heritage, but of the triumph of truth over falsehood. Though the journey had been arduous, the path forward was clearer, guided by justice and the unwavering bonds of those who stood for what was right. Victor Sterling sat in the dimly lit holding room of the local police station, the weight of his actions pressing heavily upon him. The arrest had been swift and decisive, a culmination of evidence so overwhelming that even his carefully crafted defenses crumbled without resistance. The once confident, charismatic man now faced the stark reality of justice closing in, his fate sealed by the truth he had tried so hard to conceal. Back at the Sterling estate, the atmosphere was one of cautious relief mixed with lingering tension. The family gathered in the drawing room, their faces marked by exhaustion, but also a renewed sense of clarity. Marcus Sterling stood before them, his posture firm, yet his eyes carried the burden of leadership through turbulent times. "I want to extend my deepest apologies to Lila," Marcus began, his voice resonant with sincerity. "For too long, doubt overshadowed your loyalty and honesty. I failed to see the truth when it mattered most, and for that, I am truly sorry." Lila, seated quietly among the family, met Marcus's gaze with a mixture of gratitude and grace. "Thank you, Marcus. Your support means everything to me." The family members nodded in agreement, their expressions reflecting a collective acknowledgement of past mistakes and a commitment to move forward with integrity. With Victor's removal from the household, the Sterling estate began the delicate process of rebuilding trust and unity. Marcus took deliberate steps to ensure that Lila's position was not only restored but elevated. He recognized her strength, resilience, and unwavering dedication, qualities that had shone brightest amidst adversity. In a private meeting, Marcus offered Lila a new role within the estate's management, one that would grant her greater responsibility and respect. "You have proven your character beyond doubt," he said earnestly. "I want you to be a part of shaping the future of this family and our home." Lila accepted with humility, aware that this opportunity was more than a job. It was a chance to reclaim her dignity and redefine her place within the Sterling legacy. The staff of the estate, many of whom had stood by Lila throughout the ordeal, rallied around her. Their quiet support fostered a renewed sense of community and solidarity. The whispers of suspicion gave way to conversations of hope and healing. Outside the walls of the grand estate, news of Victor's arrest and the resolution of the theft spread quietly among trusted circles. The scandal, once a source of shame, transformed into a testament to justice prevailing over deception. Marcus remained vigilant, determined to prevent such betrayal from happening again. He commissioned a thorough review of the estate's security protocols and staff management, seeking to create an environment where trust was safeguarded and accountability upheld. Lila, meanwhile, found solace in her growing role and the relationships she nurtured within the household. She began to envision a future where her voice could be heard beyond the confines of domestic work, a future where she could advocate for others who had faced similar injustices. One afternoon, as she walked through the blooming gardens with Marcus, they spoke quietly about possibilities. "I want to do more than just work here," Lila confessed. "I want to help others who might not have the chance to tell their stories." Marcus smiled warmly. "You have the strength and courage to make a difference. I'll support you however I can." Together, they began discussing plans for initiatives aimed at protecting domestic workers and promoting fairness, a vision born from the trials they had endured. As the estate settled into a new rhythm, the shadows of the past slowly receded. The bonds between family members grew stronger, forged by lessons learned and the shared commitment to truth and justice. Lila's journey from accusation to vindication became a beacon of hope within the Sterling household, inspiring others to stand firm in their convictions. Marcus, reflecting on the tumultuous months, recognized the transformative power of forgiveness and the necessity of confronting uncomfortable truths. The Sterling estate, once fractured by deceit, was now on a path toward healing and renewal, its foundation strengthened by honesty, respect, and the unwavering resilience of those who called it home. The Sterling estate was slowly awakening from the shadows that had long clouded its halls. The once tense atmosphere gave way to cautious optimism as the family and staff began the careful work of mending the fractures that Victor's betrayal had left behind. In the quiet moments between duties and daily routines, conversations shifted from whispered doubts to hopeful plans for the future. Lila found herself standing at a crossroads. The ordeal had taken much from her, the trust she once took for granted, the comfort of routine, and the certainty of belonging. Yet, amid the turmoil, a new sense of purpose began to take root. With Marcus's unwavering support, she contemplated the possibilities that lay beyond the confines of the Sterling estate. One crisp morning, Marcus invited Lila into his expansive study, a room filled with leather-bound books and the faint scent of aged wood. He motioned toward a seat across from his desk. "Lila, I've been thinking about your future," he began, his tone sincere. "You've shown remarkable strength. Have you considered pursuing further education or training?" Lila's eyes brightened with surprise. "I have, but I wasn't sure if it was possible." Marcus smiled warmly. "It is. I want to support you in any way I can. Whether it's courses, workshops, or something more formal, you deserve the opportunity." The offer was more than just assistance. It was an acknowledgement of Lila's potential beyond her role in the household. The promise of growth ignited a spark within her, a vision of empowerment that had seemed distant before. Meanwhile, within the Sterling family, efforts to rebuild trust took shape through open dialogues and renewed commitments to transparency. Marcus convened regular family meetings, encouraging honest conversations about the past and the path forward. These gatherings, though sometimes fraught with emotion, fostered a sense of unity and accountability. Clarissa, Marcus's sister, took a particular interest in bridging gaps, reaching out to family members and staff alike. Her gentle approach helped ease lingering tensions, reminding everyone that healing was a collective journey. Among the staff, the removal of suspicion brought a renewed camaraderie. Lila's elevated role inspired others, and small initiatives emerged to support employee well-being and communication. The estate's management began to prioritize inclusivity and fairness, recognizing that a harmonious home depended on the dignity of all who lived and worked there. Lila herself became a quiet advocate, sharing her experiences with trusted colleagues and encouraging openness about challenges faced by domestic workers. Her voice, once overshadowed by false accusations, now carried weight and respect. One afternoon, as Lila walked through the estate's gardens, she encountered Maria, who greeted her with a warm smile. "You've come so far, Lila," she said softly. "It's inspiring." Lila returned the smile, feeling the steady strength of friendship. "Thank you, Maria. I want to help others find their voice, too." The seasons shifted, bringing new light and growth to the estate's grounds. Sunflowers bloomed tall and golden, their bright faces turned toward the sun, a fitting symbol of resilience and hope. Marcus and Lila often found themselves strolling through the gardens, discussing plans that extended beyond the estate's walls. They dreamed of creating programs to empower domestic workers, offering education, legal support, and a platform to share their stories. "We can make a real difference," Marcus said one evening, the setting sun casting a warm glow. Together, Lila nodded, determination shining in her eyes. "For those who have been silenced, for those who deserve justice." Their shared vision planted the seeds for a foundation that would soon take shape, rooted in the lessons learned from betrayal and redemption. Within the Sterling household, life gradually returned to a steadier rhythm. The echoes of past suspicion faded, replaced by gestures of kindness and renewed respect. The staff worked with a renewed sense of pride, and the family embraced a commitment to fairness and support. Lila's journey of healing continued, marked not only by personal growth, but by her emerging role as a leader and advocate. She balanced the demands of her duties with her studies and community engagement, embodying the strength born of adversity. Marcus watched with quiet admiration as Lila flourished, grateful for the chance to make amends and build a future grounded in trust. Their partnership, forged in the crucible of hardship, became a testament to the power of resilience and the possibility of new beginnings. As twilight settled over the Sterling estate, the sunflowers in the gardens stood tall against the fading light, a living reminder that even after the darkest storms, life could bloom anew. The Sterling estate had settled into a new rhythm, one marked by healing and quiet purpose. Yet beneath the surface, a fresh energy was stirring, a shared vision between Marcus and Lila that extended far beyond the boundaries of the grand home they both cherished. It was a vision born from pain and resilience, a commitment to transform personal trials into a beacon of hope for others. One crisp autumn afternoon, Marcus invited Lila into his private study, a room lined with shelves heavy with books and memories. The fire crackled softly in the hearth, casting flickering shadows that danced across the walls. Marcus poured 2 cups of tea and handed one to Lila, his eyes reflecting a mixture of resolve and warmth. "I've been thinking a lot about what we can do," he began, "not just for this family, but for those who find themselves vulnerable, domestic workers who often face injustice and have little recourse." Lila took a sip, her gaze steady. "I've seen the struggles firsthand. Many don't have a voice, and when accusations like mine arise, they're often powerless to defend themselves." Marcus nodded. "That's why I want to start a charitable initiative, a foundation dedicated to empowering domestic workers. We can provide education, legal aid, and support networks." A spark lit in Lila's eyes. "Yes, and we can create programs to teach workers about their rights, connect them with resources, and offer counseling. It's about more than protection. It's about dignity." Together, they began outlining plans, a foundation that would serve as a sanctuary and a platform for those too often overlooked. The initiative would partner with legal experts, educators, and community leaders to build comprehensive support systems. Marcus committed resources from the Sterling family's wealth, recognizing that privilege came with responsibility. Lila, drawing from her own experiences, became the heart of the movement, determined to ensure that no one else would suffer as she had. News of their plans spread quietly at first, garnering interest from philanthropic circles and advocacy groups. Invitations to speak at community forums and charity events soon followed, with Lila emerging as a powerful and empathetic voice for domestic workers' rights. Within the Sterling Estate, preparations were underway to host a launch event for the foundation. The grand ballroom was transformed into a space of hope and purpose, adorned with banners and photographs highlighting stories of resilience and justice. On the day of the event, guests from diverse backgrounds gathered: advocates, legal professionals, community members, and families touched by similar struggles. The atmosphere was charged with optimism and determination. Marcus took the stage first, his voice resonant as he addressed the crowd. "We stand here not just to celebrate a new beginning, but to acknowledge the truths that brought us here. Our foundation is a pledge to protect, empower, and uplift those who are too often unheard." Then Lila stepped forward, her presence commanding yet humble. She shared her story, not as a tale of victimhood, but as a testament to strength and the power of truth. Her words moved many to tears and inspired countless others to action. The foundation's programs were unveiled: legal clinics, educational workshops, mentorship opportunities, all designed to create a safety net and a ladder for domestic workers striving for justice and dignity. As the evening unfolded, Lila mingled with guests, listening to their stories, answering questions, and forging connections. Marcus watched with pride, knowing that their collaboration was already making a tangible difference. In the weeks that followed, the foundation's work gained momentum. Success stories began to emerge: workers who had received legal assistance, families educated about fair employment practices, and communities strengthened by newfound awareness. Lila continued to balance her responsibilities at the Sterling Estate with her role as an advocate, her life forever changed by the journey from accusation to empowerment. Marcus remained a steadfast partner, providing guidance, resources, and unwavering support. Their shared mission forged a bond deeper than employer and employee, a partnership rooted in respect, trust, and a shared vision for justice. Together, they navigated challenges and celebrated victories, each step forward a testament to resilience and the transformative power of standing up for what is right. Within the Sterling Estate's walls and beyond, the foundation became a beacon, a symbol that from pain and betrayal could emerge hope, opportunity, and lasting change. As seasons turned and the sunflowers in the garden swayed gently in the breeze, Lila and Marcus looked ahead, knowing their work was far from over, but strengthened by the knowledge that they were not alone. Their journey was a living proof that even in the face of adversity, courage and conviction could carve a path toward justice and empowerment, inspiring generations to come. The foundation's launch had been just the beginning. Over the following months, the initiative Marcus and Lila had nurtured blossomed into a powerful force for change, reaching far beyond a Sterling Estate and touching lives across the country. What started as a response to personal injustice evolved into a nationwide movement dedicated to empowering domestic workers, advocating for their rights, and providing tangible support to those in need. In a modest office filled with files, photographs, and a hum of busy conversations, Lila sat at her desk, surrounded by volunteers and staff who shared her passion. The walls were adorned with testimonials from workers whose lives had been transformed by the Foundation's programs. Stories of courage, resilience, and newfound hope. Lila's days were a whirlwind of meetings, workshops, and outreach efforts. She traveled frequently, speaking at conferences, visiting shelters, and connecting with communities that had long been marginalized. Her voice, once silenced by false accusations, now resonated with authority and empathy. One afternoon, Marcus joined her at the office, carrying a stack of new legal documents and program proposals. He smiled warmly as he approached. "You've built something incredible here, Lila." She returned the smile, exhaustion mingling with pride. "It's a team effort, but there's still so much to do." Marcus nodded. "And we'll keep going together." Their collaboration had evolved into a partnership rooted in mutual respect and shared purpose. Marcus had appointed Lila as the Foundation's director, a role that recognized her leadership and deep commitment. She was no longer just a former maid. She was an advocate, a mentor, and a symbol of resilience. The Foundation's flagship program provided legal aid to domestic workers facing exploitation or false accusations. Alongside this, educational workshops taught workers about their rights, safety protocols, and avenues for support. Mentorship programs paired experienced advocates with newcomers, fostering a community of empowerment. Lila often reflected on her own journey, the betrayal, the fight for justice, and the eventual healing. It was this personal history that fueled her dedication, allowing her to connect authentically with those she helped. In the evenings, the Sterling Estate remained a sanctuary of peace and growth. The gardens bloomed with vibrant sunflowers, their golden faces turned toward the setting sun, a living emblem of the Foundation's spirit. Marcus and Lila often met there, discussing strategy and dreams. One twilight, as the last rays painted the sky, Marcus spoke softly, "We've come so far, but I know this is just the beginning." Lila nodded, the cool breeze tugging gently at her hair. "Every voice we lift, every life we touch, it all matters." Their work continued to inspire change, influencing policy discussions and encouraging other families and organizations to adopt similar initiatives. The Foundation's success became a blueprint, showing that justice and empowerment could arise from the darkest of circumstances. Lila's story was shared widely, not as a tale of victimhood, but as a testament to strength, truth, and the power of standing up against falsehoods. She became a mentor to many, guiding others to find their own paths to justice. Within the Sterling Estate, life flourished in harmony. The family embraced transparency and fairness, their relationships deepened by the lessons learned. Lila's role there was honored, her presence a reminder of resilience and the possibility of transformation. As the seasons changed, so did the lives connected to the Foundation. New programs launched, outreach expanded, and the community grew stronger. The Foundation's annual gala became a celebrated event, honoring advocates and sharing success stories that inspired continued commitment. On the eve of the Foundation's first anniversary, a quiet celebration was held in the gardens under a canopy of stars. Lila and Marcus stood side by side, surrounded by friends, colleagues, and those whose lives have been forever changed. The sunflowers swayed gently in the night breeze, their golden petals catching the moonlight, a symbol of enduring hope. Lila raised a glass, her voice steady and filled with emotion. "This journey has shown me that healing begins with truth, and that even from betrayal, something beautiful can emerge. Together, we have created a space where justice is not just a word, but a lived reality." Marcus smiled, his eyes reflecting pride and gratitude. To new beginnings, to resilience, and to the power of standing up for what is right. As glasses clinked and laughter filled the air, the Foundation's mission shone brighter than ever, a beacon of justice, empowerment, and the unyielding strength found in those who dare to speak their truth. The story of Lila and Marcus was no fairy tale, but a real testament to growth, forgiveness, and the transformative power of second chances. It was a reminder that even in the face of adversity, hope could take root and flourish, guiding the way toward a more just and compassionate world. If you love the story, like the video and subscribe.